Mr. No-Nonsense, beer-chugging Philly legend Jason Kelce. Not a hot-take artist. Not a clickbait YouTuber. But one of the most respected, straight-shooting voices in football. And he just went on the record on his podcast, calling out Browns ownership by name for their horrible handling of Shadour Sanders. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't diplomatic. It was a mic drop. Because let's be real, this hasn't just been a quarterback controversy, it's been an organizational embarrassment. A team practically allergic to momentum somehow found a franchise quarterback, and then didn't play him. Until it was too late. Until the headlines were bad. Until Jason Kelce from 1,000 miles away had to say what Browns fans have been screaming for weeks. Let's rewind.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Shadour Sanders, yes, the media sensation, the fifth-round pick with a first-round aura, has been everything the Browns could have hoped for. Poised in preseason. Surgical in practice. Beloved in the locker room. Selling jerseys before he even took a snap. Not just a quarterback, a presence. And what does Cleveland do? They sit him. Not for a game. Not to ease him in. But for weeks. While the offense stagnated. While fans grew restless. While Sanders stood on the sidelines like a museum exhibit, watching a season slip through the cracks of institutional hesitation, Jason Kelce saw it. And he snapped. On the latest episode of his podcast, in that familiar gravelly voice, Kelce let it rip. You don't treat your most valuable asset like that. I don't care if he was a fifth-round pick or the son of a Hall of Famer. If a guy's ready, you play him. End of story. Boom. He didn't stop there. Kelce went after Browns owner Jimmy Haslam, saying, quote, "If ownership's more worried about controlling the narrative than building a team, then no wonder this franchise hasn't won anything meaningful in 20 years. 20 years. That's not commentary. That's a diagnosis." And before the sports media machine even had time to digest it, the clip went viral. Fans reposting it with fire emojis. Players liking it. Reporters scrambling to confirm what everyone already knew: the Browns mishandled this. Badly. And now the whole league's watching the fallout. Because this isn't just a coaching mistake. This is systemic. This is what happens when outdated power structures collide with a new kind of athlete. One who isn't just talented but culturally relevant. One who brings both performance and visibility. And the NFL, for all its marketing genius, still struggles to embrace that kind of player unless he fits their old-school mold. Enter Shadour Sanders. He's not quiet. He's not docile. He's not waiting for permission. He's ready. And somehow that made people nervous. Kelce nailed it when he said, "You're not coaching a spreadsheet. You're coaching people. And if you've got a guy with talent and leadership and charisma, that's a unicorn. You don't bench a unicorn." He's not wrong. And yet, that's exactly what Cleveland did. Let's talk about what it took for Shedeur to even get his shot. A near-fan revolt. A coaching demotion. A public humiliation. And now that he's finally under center, the team feels different. The offense flows. The defense plays harder. The stadium buzzes. You feel the shift. And not just because of stats. Because of energy. Because of belief. But that energy could have been here weeks ago. Which brings us back to the core issue. The Browns didn't just make a bad football decision. They made a bad leadership decision. They let bias, fear, and fragile egos dictate the most important position on the field. And in doing so, they almost sabotaged the one player who might actually change the trajectory of this cursed franchise. Let's not pretend this is rare. The NFL has a history of slow-playing black quarterbacks, especially the outspoken ones. The ones who speak with clarity and confidence. The ones who know their value beyond the stat sheet. They're often labeled divisive, cocky, or not ready, even when the tape says otherwise. Shedeur? He's checking every box. Mechanics? On point. Composure? Unshakable. Football IQ? Off the charts. And still, the league tried to treat him like a project. Now, throw in the added layer of off-field excellence, community involvement, leadership programs, youth mentorships, and you start to see the full picture. This is not some hype job. This is not just Dion's kid. This is a quarterback who gets it. On the field. Off the field. In the film room. In front of the mic. And still, he had to fight to be seen. That's why Jason Kelce going public matters. Because when a respected veteran with zero personal stake in the situation says this isn't okay, people listen. The league listens. And more importantly, it gives permission for others to speak up. former players, current teammates, even opposing coaches. Because everyone knows what this is, a battle between the old guard and the new wave. Between institutions that want control and players who demand agency. And guess what? The new wave is winning. Look around. You think Shedeur's the only one changing the rules? This is happening across the league. Younger players aren't just playing for contracts, they're playing for equity, for influence, for voice. And the teams that get it? The teams that embrace that shift? They're winning games, signing stars, and building dynasties. The teams that don't? Well, they're benching unicorns and getting roasted by Jason Kelce on a Wednesday afternoon. Here's the thing, Cleveland still has time to get this right. The shift has started. Stefanski's no longer calling plays. Sanders is starting. The locker room is energized. But the damage isn't fully undone. There's still trust to rebuild. With the fans. With the players. With the future. Because make no mistake, if Cleveland doesn't lean into this moment, if they don't go all in on Shedeur, empower him, protect him, and build around him, they're not just risking another lost season. They're risking a reputation. Reputation as the franchise that couldn't recognize generational talent standing right in front of them. Again. So what now? That's the question echoing around the league. Does Cleveland learn? Or repeat history? Does ownership double down on outdated control? Or step back and let this new energy breathe? Does the league stop pretending this is about readiness and start being honest about bias? And more importantly, do more voices like Jason Kelce speak up? Because if we're lucky, this moment isn't just about a quarterback controversy. It's about cracking open a deeper conversation about who gets a chance in this league and why. Shadour Sanders is here. He's ready. He's earned it. Now it's up to the Browns to stop tripping over themselves and get out of the way. So what do you think? Did Jason Kelce go too far, or not far enough? Is this just a Cleveland problem, or is this an NFL-wide issue? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're here for the truth bombs, meltdowns, and quarterback chaos, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Jason Kelce didn't just light a match, he firebombed the whole conversation. And now that the smoke is clearing, we're seeing what's really been hiding under the surface this whole time. Because let's be honest, this Shadour Sanders situation? It was never just about football. Never just about who starts at quarterback. This has been about power from day one. And the Browns? They got exposed. Jason Kelce calling out Jimmy Haslam by name wasn't just commentary. It was an indictment. A line in the sand. A Hall of Fame-bound, Super Bowl-winning veteran saying, enough is enough. Stop treating players like chess pieces. Stop hiding behind systems and philosophies when you're just scared of change. Let's be real, Haslam has spent a decade trying to prove he can build a winner. He's burned through quarterbacks like they were seasonal staff. Coaches, coordinators, GMs, it's been musical chairs since the Johnny Manziel experiment crashed and burned. And now he gets handed a quarterback with poise, polish, leadership, and national attention, and he still fumbles it? You can almost hear the echo of every frustrated Browns fan who's lived through this same cycle over and over again. Except this time there's a twist. Because Shadour Sanders isn't just another guy caught in the crossfire of Cleveland's dysfunction. He's pushing back. Not with tweets. Not with tantrums. But with presence. With composure. With every practice rep. With every film session. With every moment he stands on that sideline looking like he already owns the building. And the world sees it. That's what's different now. There are eyes on this story. National media. Cultural media. Fans outside of Ohio who don't even like football but know Shadeur's name. Because his story? It's about more than a depth chart. It's about the shift happening across every major sport where athletes, especially black athletes, are saying, we're not waiting anymore. Not for opportunity. Not for approval. Not for the system to catch up. We've seen this play out in real time. Lamar Jackson getting questioned every single year despite an MVP. Cam Newton getting branded as immature the second he smiled too hard in a press conference. Colin Kaepernick blackballed for daring to kneel and be great. The league has a long history of moving the goalposts for quarterbacks who don't fit the mold. Who don't smile the right way. Who don't keep their heads down and mouths shut. Shadour Sanders doesn't fit the mold. He shatters it. A fifth-round pick with first-round poise. A marketing phenom who's also deep in the playbook. A legacy name who earns every yard on the field. And yet, somehow, it still wasn't enough for the Browns to start him out the gate. Because what? He was too media-ready? Because he had the audacity to care about his brand? Spare me. Jason Kelce said the quiet part out loud. You don't bench your future just because you're uncomfortable with his spotlight. And let's not act like Shedeur's just some flashy kid with a Nike deal. The guy's been grinding. His footwork is textbook. His release is clean. His reads are fast. And maybe most importantly, he has command. Command of the huddle, of the room, of the moment. That's what great quarterbacks do. And Kelce sees it. That's why he's angry. Because when you've been around this game long enough, you can feel when a guy has it. And you can smell it from a mile away when an organization is too afraid to let it breathe. Cleveland, in all its tortured glory, had a chance to do something bold. To lean into a new era. To be early for once. And instead, they blinked. They sat Shedeur on the sideline while their season started to spiral. They tried to manage the hype instead of unleashing it. And now they're playing catch-up, again. Now, to their credit, they've finally pivoted. Stefanski's not calling plays. Shedeur's in. The locker room is rallying. Fans are back in the building, jerseys flying off the racks. But there's still a cloud hanging over this situation, and it's not just from the coaching booth. It's from the top. Because no matter how many highlight reels Shedeur puts together, or how many wins he stacks, there's a real question hanging in the air. Does the front office actually believe in him? Not just tolerate him. Not just use him for PR. Not just ride the wave until it's no longer convenient. Do they trust him? Do they build around him? Do they listen to him? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. You can't half-step this thing. You don't ease into a cultural reset. You either back your guy, or you watch him take his talent somewhere that will. Jason Kelce knows this. He's watched franchises ruin potential with indecision. He's seen egos tank seasons. He's played with greats and watched locker rooms implode because leadership wouldn't let go of outdated ideas. And he's not going to sit quietly while one of the most dynamic young quarterbacks in the league gets kneecapped by ownership politics. That's why his rant matters. That's why it's bigger than just Shedeur. It's a warning shot. To Cleveland. To the NFL. To every team that thinks they can still operate like it's 1998. This is the new era. Players are the brand. Talent does speak louder than pedigree. And when you've got a quarterback who's not only ready for the field but ready for the world, you don't hide him. You build around him. And if you don't, the world is watching now. The fans aren't quiet. The media isn't forgiving. And players like Jason Kelce? They're not holding back anymore. So what's next for Cleveland? They've got a choice to make. They can let this become another tragic chapter in their already soap opera tier history. Or they can flip the script. Go all in on Shedeur. Protect him. Trust him. Give him full command of the offense and the culture. Not just because he's good, but because he's right for this moment. Because if you don't back your leaders, your real leaders, someone else will. And then it's déjà vu all over again. Another star walks. Another reboot begins. And Cleveland goes back to being a punchline. But not this time. Right? That's the hope. That's what fans are clinging to. That maybe finally the Browns won't fumble the bag. That maybe Jason Kelce's words will rattle something loose in that executive suite. That maybe this time the future isn't going to be ignored, it's going to be embraced. So let's end this with a challenge. Not to Shedeur. He's doing everything right. But to the franchise. The front office. The league. Don't waste this. Don't let another once-in-a-generation player get buried under boardroom politics and fragile egos. Don't let fear dictate the future. Don't just say the league is changing, act like it. Because change isn't coming. It's already here. And his name is Shadour Sanders. And honestly, he's right. Every syllable of that outburst felt like years of pent-up frustration, not just for Browns fans but for anyone who's ever watched raw, undeniable talent get suffocated under red tape and rusty tradition. Because let's just call it what it is. Cleveland almost fumbled their future. And no, that's not an exaggeration. That's not a give-it-time situation. That's not, well, he's a rookie. That's organizational malpractice. You had a player who checked every box: performance, poise, pressure handling, public magnetism, and your instinct was to slow-walk him like he needed training wheels. Shadour Sanders didn't need a development plan. He was the development plan. But instead of riding that wave, the Browns tried to cage it. And they didn't just do it quietly. They did it publicly. On the field. On camera. While the fanbase screamed in real time. While the offense sputtered. While the energy in that stadium dropped like a phone on 1% battery. It was brutal. You could feel the disconnect. And then, finally, the backlash came. First from fans. Then from media. And then, boom, Jason Kelce enters the chat, drops a truth nuke, and suddenly this isn't just a Cleveland issue anymore. This is a league-wide mirror moment. And that mirror is showing something uncomfortable. That for all the lip service the NFL gives to evolving, for all the hashtags and highlight reels and shiny press releases, they still have a problem letting go of the past. Especially when the future doesn't look or act like they're used to. Let's just sit with that. Shadour Sanders isn't just young and gifted, he's visionary. He understands media, message, and momentum. He knows that a quarterback isn't just a position anymore. It's a platform. And he's running that platform like a CEO. So what does Cleveland do? They stick him on the bench. Like they're trying to teach him humility through forced irrelevance. It's like watching a racehorse be told to, just walk the track first, kid, we'll let you run later. Meanwhile, the fans are already at the finish line, wondering why they're still waiting. This wasn't about readiness. It was about control. About fear. About the kind of old-school coaching logic that treats charisma like a virus instead of an asset. And that's exactly what Kelce blew up on. Because if there's one guy who's played long enough, smart enough, and successful enough to know what real leadership looks like, it's him. And he saw through this circus from day one. You don't sit a guy like Shedeur unless you're scared of what his success might say about you. That's the brutal truth. Because if he succeeds too early, if he comes in, starts winning, starts electrifying the fanbase without following your rigid system, suddenly your whole philosophy starts looking a little fragile. Suddenly the coach isn't the architect. The system isn't the savior. Suddenly it's about the player. And the NFL's not used to that yet. It's why they still draft based on upside but coach based on fear. It's why they reward grit over vision, discipline over dynamic energy. But here's the thing, the game has changed. And Shedeur? He's not just playing it. He's redefining it. Let's talk about how. When he finally got the nod, when Cleveland could no longer justify keeping him shackled to the bench, it wasn't just a moment, it was a movement. You could feel it on that opening drive. The calm cadence. The way he scanned the defense pre-snap like he'd been doing it for years. The subtle shifts. The timing. The presence. You don't coach that. You cultivate it. And the best part? It wasn't just about stats. It was about rhythm. Command. Flow. The kind of things you feel before you even see the scoreboard. That's what's got this city buzzing. That's why Jason Kelce couldn't stay quiet. Because anyone with a pulse and a passing knowledge of football could see what was happening, and what almost didn't. And look, let's zoom out. What's happening in Cleveland isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's a generational reckoning. The NFL is being pushed into a new identity, whether it wants to or not. One where the quarterbacks of tomorrow are media literate, brand fluent, and leadership native. One where the playbook isn't just paper, it's presence. And if you're not building your team around that reality, you're gonna get left behind. Fast. Because Shadour Sanders isn't an anomaly. He's the beginning. There are more like him coming. Quarterbacks who can throw 60-yard bombs and run a social campaign. Guys who know that being the face of a franchise means more than pointing at a scoreboard. It means owning the moment. Every angle of it. And if the NFL doesn't adjust, they'll keep sabotaging the very stars they desperately need. That's what makes this Shedeur moment feel so much bigger than just a bad coaching call. It's symbolic. It's a red flag for every team still thinking they can develop greatness by suppressing personality. Newsflash, this isn't 1992. You can't mute a movement. And Shedeur is a movement. So now the spotlight's on Cleveland. Again. But not because they're failing. This time it's because they might, just might, be getting it right. Finally. Belatedly. Painfully. Because now the pressure isn't just on Shedeur to perform. It's on the organization to support him. To let him lead. To give him the keys and not hover in the passenger seat with a clipboard and an existential crisis. Because we've seen what he can do with just a little room to breathe. Now imagine what happens when you give him the wheel. Could be magic. Could be mayhem. But at least it'll be modern. And if Cleveland is smart, and I say that with all the historical hesitance they've earned, they'll let this ride play out the way it's meant to. No more second guessing. No more power plays. Just football. Evolved. Electrified. Empowered. And led by a quarterback who isn't just ready to play, he's ready to change the game. So tell me, was Kelce right to go off? Should more players call out management when they see talent being wasted? Or is this just another overblown Cleveland meltdown destined to fade like so many others? Whatever you believe, one thing's certain. Shadour Sanders has arrived. And this time, they'd better not bench the future. If you're here for the fire, the fallout, and the football revolution, hit that subscribe button and stay locked in. Because what's happening in Cleveland right now, it's not just a storyline. It's a seismic shift. And we're just getting started. The same rookie quarterback who was treated like a side character in his own story, the same player who was labeled a distraction before he ever threw a pass, the same fifth-round pick who got boxed out of a broken offense for the sake of structure. He is now the reason Cleveland even has a pulse this season. The stadium? Loud. The locker room? Unified. The fans? Finally hopeful. And not in that fake, next year we'll figure it out kind of way. This is different. This is real. You can feel it. Shedeur isn't just playing quarterback, he's changing the emotional temperature of the entire franchise. And now, every snap, every completion, every drive is one big, I told you so, to every decision-maker who dragged their feet. You think Jason Kelce didn't sense that? Of course he did. That's why he came out swinging. Because he's been in those rooms. He's seen the politics, the pride, the petty little power struggles that ruin players before they ever get a chance to show who they really are. And when he saw what was happening in Cleveland, that old guard nonsense playing out all over again, he said, "Nope, not on my watch." And now the pressure's flipped. It's no longer on Shedeur to prove he's ready. It's on the Browns to prove they deserve him. Because the second he starts stringing wins together, and let's be honest, it's already starting, you know what's coming next. National coverage, MVP whispers, endorsement escalations, and yeah, probably a Netflix docuseries. This is no longer just a quarterback story. It's a full-blown cultural event. And Cleveland's front office? They're either about to ride the wave, or drown in their own caution tape. Because here's what no one wants to say out loud. If they blow this, if they somehow fumble the trust Shedeur's earned, if they revert back to old politics, if they so much as hesitate, he will walk. Not today. Not tomorrow. But make no mistake, in this era of player empowerment he will leave and fans will follow him right out the door. So the Browns have a choice. Build around him. Trust him. Grow with him. Or become the cautionary tale in his eventual Hall of Fame speech. This isn't just about doing right by Shedeur. It's about finally doing right by yourselves. So Cleveland, what's it gonna be? Stick to the past? Or finally make peace with the future standing right in front of you? Because the clock's ticking, and this time you don't want to be late.